In Gaza, at least 23 people were killed when a missile struck a residential building in Rafah. The dead and injured were rushed to the Kuwaiti hospital located less than 200 meters from the blast. In Venezuela, Diplomat Alex Saab denounced the mistreatment he received during his time in prison at the United States on the third edition of President Nicolas Maduro's podcast. And in Argentina, the General Confederation of Workers called for a national strike with a march to the Congress to be held on January 24th in rejection of the decree of necessity and urgency issued by the government of Javier Milei. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll be with the news. Stay with us. In Palestine, at least 23 people were killed when a missile struck a residential building in Rafah, southern Gaza on Thursday. The dead and injured were rushed to the Kuwaiti hospital located less than 200 meters from the blast. Many of the affected were assisted by doctors outside the building. There are also reports of bombings of towns and refugee camps across the Strip. The air and ground offensive against Hamas has expanded into much of the territory and forced thousands to flee their homes and shelters. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society denounced Israeli forces attacked the vicinity of the Al-Mal hospital in Khan Yunis for the fifth time in less than a week, leaving at least 10 people dead and 10 wounded. According to the authorities, the majority of those affected were displaced persons taking refuge in the Red Crescent headquarters in the hospital after being forced from their homes as a result of the Israeli bombardment. The Red Crescent also urged the international community to address the situation in the Gaza Strip. Hamas official Osama Hamdan said on Thursday in Lebanon that a militant group is open to any proposal for a complete cessation of aggressions against Gaza and reiterated the group's official position that management of the Palestinian issue is an internal Palestinian national decision.
Regarding the political initiatives and proposals that are being talked about, we first confirm the movement's openness to any ideas or proposals to completely and definitively stop the aggression against our people in the Gaza Strip. Our people do not want a temporary cessation, but rather a complete cessation of the aggression. And here we also affirm that the management of the Palestinian issue is an internal Palestinian national decision. It is the decision of the Palestinian people alone, and our people will not accept leadership that comes to them on the back of a Zionist or a U.S. tank or with the protection of this tank.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, urged Israel on Thursday to end extrajudicial killings and their violence against the Palestinian population. The United Nations agency warned of rapid deterioration of the human rights situation in the West Bank and East Jerusalem since October 7 and called for an immediate end to the use of weapons and military means during security operations, who arbitrary arrests and ill treatment of Palestinians, and the removal of discriminatory movement restrictions. In Lebanon, the Hezbollah resistance group warned that it is ready to respond militarily to any aggressions by the occupying army. The border area between southern Lebanon and Israel has intensified tensions in recent days as the parties exchange fire with losses on both sides. In this sense, the leader of the military group, Naim Qassem, points out that they are ready to take the necessary actions in the face of the genocide triggered in the Gaza Strip.
If Israel goes too far, we will retaliate twice. We will not be afraid of any Israeli or U.S. threats or intimidation, because the future of the region now depends on this hope and this sacrifice.
Arabs and Israelis rally in Tel Aviv on Thursday for a ceasefire in Gaza as Israeli forces heavily bombed the beside Gaza Strip.
Israelis, Palestinians, Muslims, Jews, and Christians. This is everybody's home. And the only solution is to recognize that both people are entitled to a life of freedom and sovereignty and dignity, no matter their religion and background. Everybody needs. These are basic human rights that have been withdrawn from millions of people for 56 years. So there is, of course, the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th will never be pardoned and excused. They never can, period. No forgiveness, but if you don't see the historical context, then you're condemned to repeat the same tragedy over and over again.
Well, this protest is about Arab people and Jewish people standing together. And we live here together in this country, and I believe that we have to live here together. And I do believe that we can live peacefully together. And I am for peace and for the two-state solution, which our Prime Minister doesn't want even to talk about. And now we have even, how shall I say, a more important goal, which is to bring back our hostages. These are Israeli civilians who are held by people of Hamas. And our government is responsible for our citizens.
Also in the United States, demonstrators marched on the streets of New York City demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Protesters marched through the streets of New York on Thursday demanding a ceasefire in Gaza following Wednesday march where the pro-Palestinian protesters briefly blocked entrance roads to airports in New York and Los Angeles. So far this month in New York, pro-Palestinian organizers have responded to the growing death toll in Gaza with escalating actions aimed at disturbing some of the city's best-known events, including the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and the annual tree lighting ceremony at the Rockefeller Center. Let's take a very short break, but remember you can now join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, Diplomat Alex Saab denounced torture and cruel treatment received during his kidnapping in Cape Verde and illegal incarceration in the United States. In an exclusive interview given in the third edition of Maduro's podcast, the diplomat said that during his kidnapping, the U.S. government imposed unilateral coercive measures against Venezuela and a bloody economy in order to get the nation's collapse. Saab also reported that during his abduction, he had to drink water in the same containers where he had to perform his physiological needs. During his exclusive interview, the Venezuelan diplomat referred to the sanctions he and his family had been subjected to by the U.S. government and how he was tortured for 2 hours for refusing to sign a voluntary extradition from Cape Verde to the U.S.
In July 2019, I was sanctioned. My sons, my brothers also were sanctioned, who didn't even have any link to the government of Venezuela. The sanctions, they were sanctions because they were relatives of mine. Since 2019, I was sanctioned for working in the system of food, the food system of Venezuela. That first night, I was put in jail. No one spoke to me. The next day and night, I had no food, no water. At midnight, they start to talk to me, and they urge me to sign my voluntarily extradition to the United States. I refuse, then the control is they handcuff me and seat me in a chair. They put out a towel. They put a towel on my face and start filling my face with water. So I had the sensation of drowning. They torture me for over 2 hours.
Alex Saab shared his experience in prison and admitted that he gets emotional when he remembers about those moments.
On November 16th, a guard came to me and said, "Alex, there are a group of people from human rights are going to come here with the director of the prison. Yell. You need to yell that you are being subjected to torture." So when I heard that they were coming up, I started to yell. Well, they kept walking. They didn't listen to me. I still get very emotional when speaking about this. 10 minutes later, they came back. They opened the door and say, "Alex, we are here for you." They verified that I was tortured. They say this is not going to happen again. They fired the director Correa from the prison.
Camila Fabri, wife of Diplomat Alex Saab, recounts how the Venezuelan people were a great support for her in the midst of the nightmare that the Saab Fabri family was living.
This has been the victory of the diplomacy of peace. This has been a historical victory, and they are in pain because they spent millions of dollars in this media war and this demonization of Alex and Venezuela. We are more than decided to defend the truth of Venezuela, because there are a lot of lies to justify policies against Venezuela. We need to fight because these people deserves to be respected and deserves to be defended. This is a loving people that me personally they have given me a lot.
And in Argentina, the General Confederation of Workers called for national strike with a march to the Congress to be held on January 24th in rejection of the decree of necessity and urgency issued by the government of Javier Milei. The Central Confederal Committee of the CGT called this Thursday for protest activities against the labor reform and the objection promoted by the decree and bill sent to the Congress for the first month of the next 2024. In addition, it announced for next January the 10th a plenary meeting of regional delegations at the headquarters of Azopardo. In Uruguay, citizens took to the streets to demand public safety in the city of Durazno in the center of the country and manifest imbalance nationwide. According to the authorities, at least 10,000 citizens took part in the demonstration that moved to the courthouse of the department of the same name. The town has been marred by several violent acts, mostly attributed to clashes between criminal gangs in recent months. Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva vetoed some articles of the bill that allow the use of pesticides in agriculture. The head of state also blocked the reuse of pesticide containers and made the dissemination of information of health risk in products levels more flexible. The veto affected a bill which was sanctioned by the Brazilian Congress in November, loosening the laws that regulate the use of pesticides in the country. Let's take our last break, but before we invite you to join us on our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on the screen to join that red link, share the link to reach more people. Concerned youth coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. One final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. African governments are expanding protected areas by grabbing pastured and farmland from small farmers. They are opening the way for large investors to expand conservation with the expectation of carbon and biodiversity credits following a failure to agree on international public finance for climate change.
The government has taken their land to expand the conservation of a national park.
They have taken a 7-acre field from me. They have decided that this place will be used for conservation. Fortunately or unfortunately, they have already demarcated the new boundaries.
Government, please look at us with pity. We are your citizens. Where are we going now?
We have no peace. TANAPA is attacking us and the elephants are attacking us. TANAPA has appropriated about 500 acres of farmland.
Our village chiefs are only concerned with the district proceedings. They say nothing.
They have said that we can plant for the last time, that we will not cultivate there anymore.
Value animals more than people. Where are we going?
The Barali Wilaya on one side is the Pancaquipengere Game Reserve, and on the other, a few kilometers away, lie the confines of the Ruaja National Park. The Maasi and Sukuma pastoralists have been surviving without access to pasture for years. But now the government wants to evict the people. For example, from Uguavira, whose houses and rice fields have been left inside the new posts erected by the National Parks Authority, TANAPA. The late President John Magufuli had succeeded in preventing conservation development from destroying villages. But in late 2022, the government announced that 5 villages in Barali and more than 47 hamlets must disappear to protect Ruaja's wildlife.
It is a gigantic area. Hospital buildings, schools, mosques, churches. The government comes and says they have to leave. These are people who have been there for more than 40 years. And well, these people were not informed or consulted in this decision-making.
More than 800 united farmers have challenged the government's decision in court. Although so far it has only bought time to plant the last rice crops in 2024.
We do not have any strength. We are united, but we are only waiting for the procedure to be established by the government. But we have no other choice but to accept to leave. We are united, but we are just waiting for the procedure to be established by